You and I are having a conversation. The listeners get to listen, and you're probably more open to sharing things about you that are of better interest to your audience. So it's a great way to let people learn about you, that people can hear your genuine you. If people buy you before they buy your brand.
If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall McLeod. Let's go, baby. All right, welcome back. Another episode of Agents Building Cash Flow. I'm your host, Randall McLeod. Excited to have you here today. Today, we are interviewing Joseph Haker. I will be honest, at first, I didn't know where this interview was going to go. Most recently, he is running the IAHSP chapter, home staging business, right, in Denver, Colorado. So I was like, okay, agents and staging houses, obviously there's a tie in there. But come to find out, he has a wealth of knowledge on business in general. He's run a number of startups. I think he said 26. So he's in tech and he's got all kinds of things going on. Very, very interesting guy. And so I had a really good time having the conversation, and I know you get something out of it. Definitely on the home staging side, we discussed that. We also talk about podcasting, and we talk about getting yourself out there and being the face of your brand. Always prospecting. That's another topic. But just in general, it's a really good conversation, and I enjoyed having him on. So without further ado, let's go to the interview. Joseph, it's good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today. Why don't you get started? Just kind of tell us how you are involved in the real estate space and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Randall, for having me. I know that connecting the dots on this one's going to be a little bit weird, but I recently became COO of an international trade association called IHOSP, the International Association of Home Staging Professionals. And when I first came on, I looked at our members, and if you were to look at IHOSP last year, it was squarely for home stagers. That's who they serve. But when I started talking with the members, it turns out our members predominantly are real estate agents. They saw a need for home staging, and then they started up home staging businesses. So however you dice it, home stagers and real estate is intertwined. And then you add in interior design. Me coming on, I've reframed them as the business of home staging, real estate, and design. So that would be my tie into real estate.
Prior to that, what were they focused on mainly? Just interior designing?
No, purely home staging. And they defined it weird. They were focused on vacant and occupied. I don't think they were really listening to their members to find out what do their members actually do.
I got it. Now that it's rebranded, like how have you guys changed the focus? What's driving the business now, I guess?
Yeah, so we just got back from our conference in Louisiana in New Orleans, and I had a couple of people so we had the editor for U.S. News and World Report, the real estate column. I'm going to blank on her name right now. She was just out kind of headlining the real estate panel. We had Mari Balastrazi, who's the global director of design and environments for Airbnb, came out. Right away, we've started to bring in just big, heavy hitters from the real estate and the short-term rental side of things to start interacting with this group. People were already in these fields. The association wasn't bringing them the speakers from those fields because they were kind of with blinders on, just focused on home staging. Right away, this has immediately impacted the people that were already real estate agents who were also staging immediately felt like, okay, now they're talking to the full me. They're talking to the business owner me. Prior to that, we were talking to the service that they provided, not the business owner.
Maybe I'm confused then. Are you providing the association essentially? And that's what it is in a group of people who stage houses, or you guys actually stagers yourselves and you guys have a business of staging properties that you help other people franchise?
Yeah, so this is the International Association.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. Sorry for misunderstanding that. Now I'm clear on it. That conference was your conference? You guys put that thing on?
Just came on. They had already had the ball rolling on it. And then I came in to influence the new speakers and the new tracks. And so we started diving into more real estate topics and short-term rental topics.
What were some key takeaways you had from that? What's the Airbnb? Were they talking about Airbnb market, or were they just talking about staging Airbnbs and furnishing them, or how did that conversation go?
And just my background, have you been out to Vegas?
Yeah.
So have you been to the Cosmo?
Yeah.
So I designed the chandelier at the Chandelier Bar.
Oh, very nice.
And I designed all the lighting on the casino floor.
Yeah.
So my background was hospitality lighting. Airbnb in particular, it used to be a spot where you got grandma's old house, you threw it on the market because, it was an extra house and you didn't care much about furnishing because it was a short-term rental. That is not the game anymore. The luxury listings are thriving right now. Those little inherited grandma's properties, those are not doing so well. You're struggling to keep bookings going throughout the year. In designing out Airbnbs at this level now, at this stage of the game, you've really got to have a boutique hotel type of mindset. And that's something that a lot of single operators, most of your Airbnb owners have 1 or 2 properties. It's just like real estate. A lot of real estate agents are under 6 listings per year, the bulk of people. Then you get into your high performers and your top sellers and that sort of thing. Same thing in Airbnb. Once you start to get past that 20, 30 mark, then suddenly you've got to have this different mindset. You're thinking hospitality, you're thinking customer experience. And so that's something that home stagers, that conversation wasn't being had. The skill set for designing an Airbnb is not a home staging skill set. The skill set is boutique design.
I guess the focus that they were talking about at the conference.
So there was that conversation. Home staging is greatly tied to real estate. If the real estate market's down, then you have to get more competitive with marketing, and home staging deeply impacts that. If the market's great and houses are just not staying on the market, people don't need home staging as much. They don't need the marketing as much because the house is going to sell. There's low demand, or there's high demand, there's low inventory.
Yeah.
The real estate market dictates the businesses that are associated with it. Home staging is associated with real estate. So in the past, home stagers were doing their own predictions. My influence was, let's bring in, and we had a couple of realtors who worked for, I think it's the Smith Group out of Louisiana. They do 200 million or more. They're part of EXP and Mike Berry's coaching. They're crushing it. The one lady did the 17 million just on her own last year. I wanted to bring real estate agents to tell us the forecast. These guys can't screw it up. They've got 200 million on the line. They're feeding a lot of agents. They can't screw up their predictions and their forecasts. They've got ears to the track and making adjustments. They were hot on home staging. They were hot on prospecting. I'm a big fan of Mike Berry. I love his old school approach. Pick a bone, prospect. If things are good, prospect. Things are bad, prospect.
Yeah.
Mike is just old school.
Ever heard of Jeb Blunt? Always be prospect.
I have not.
He's got a book. Yeah, it's like the exact same philosophy. Always be prospecting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real easy when things are flowing to say I'm an amazing agent or I'm an amazing business owner.
Yeah.
When things are bad, it's the guy who picks up the phone.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So how many people did you guys have there? And what's the sentiment? I guess it is now staging is going to be picking up. The market's tightening up. It's getting a little bit more competitive. So
yeah, the forecast is the home staging it should and will be a part of real estate. When people walk in, I know that there's been this like a trend towards virtual staging, but man, that's like seeing the commercials for a burger and then showing up and the burger is just junk.
Yeah.
So it's part of that experience. And I know it's been interesting. NAR has spoke a lot about home staging in the past few years too. It's part of the marketing experience. I know some agents don't know who pays for what. Ultimately, that inventory, those sofas and that artwork and all that decor, that's the homeowner. It's the homeowner is responsible for it. How the agent wants to suck up the cost or pass on the cost is totally up to the agent. But it does help sell faster and for more money. It creates a better experience for everybody. It just looks more professional.
Yeah, for sure. We didn't get into this, but I'm a broker as well and been flipping houses for a long time. And that's a lot of the background. And when I've had a challenging house or challenging property, and yet there's features that would be highlighted because of the staging, those things absolutely, they help sell faster or for a better price point. Just because people can see them. I like your analogy with the hamburger. It is very much there's no sizzle when you get there because it takes some imagination to see it and the picture sells it, but then they get there and it's like, no. So,
and people don't have imagination. For people that can see things and visualize pretty well, it's easy for you.
Yeah.
But not everybody is like that. My mom could not draw to save her life. I love art. I was in adult art schools in first grade. So for my mom, she just couldn't visualize. A relatively small investment into staging a home so that everybody, not just one person or the few, but everybody who walks into that listing can go, I can see myself. I can visualize the space better.
Yeah. You guys keep any stats? Again, the premise of the show is we've got agents. We want to help them grow their active income by their brokerage side of the business? How can they get better? Staging is certainly something that they could implement and do to sell their listings faster. Do you have any stats, I guess, on either the speed with which a staged home sells compared to an unstaged home, or nationally, what is the sales price for properties that are staged compared to unstaged? Seems like a very difficult thing to track, but wondering if you guys work on something like that.
Tracking it is not super difficult. You'll see that houses that were on the market without staging and how long they've been on the market versus a house that has been staged, they sell faster. They get the numbers like roughly, and I'm fairly new to the association, but I believe it's like 30% faster. Also, so my ex was a realtor, owned a home staging company as well. And she's EXP, she's Mike Berry, she's 75 to 100 listings per year. All of her listings are staged. When clients come in and they don't want her home staged, goes outside of her model, she'll do it. They will stay on the market longer. It just, people cannot visualize the space as well. Home staging does help that. And as far as like helping agents make money faster, it's about teaming up with a real estate, with a home stager, or it's like any other contract, a horrible landscaper on a budget. You're not going to have that curb appeal that you need. You get that curb appeal that you need, that house is going to fly off the market faster. You're going to have better photos. It's like hiring a horrible photographer. You've seen good photos and you've seen bad photos.
I love
this is all part of that marketing process.
Yeah. I love the pictures uploaded like sideways. They're just wrong. And it's like a bad angle of a toilet or something. You're like, okay, no effort was given here.
Yeah. You can tell the listings where the agents value and they found a good crew. They found a good photographer. They found good landscapers. They found good painters. They got all the contractors, and they come in and they do it right. And they list homes that are nice. Hey, if you're an agent that finds just a spectacular listing that's just right out of the box, good to go, worth millions, awesome. Congratulations. That's amazing. Most people, and I talk about this all the time, why do people sell their home in the first place? They're not just sitting around on a Tuesday saying, yeah, let's put this thing on the market, see what we get for it. Something changed in their life. Their kid went to college, they took a new job. They're selling that house because they need to get out of there. And they're not thinking, let me spend money. Let me do all those things that I didn't do all these years and now dump a ton of money in a house that I'm going to sell. But if they do, and they get that house up to market standards, then their comps are entirely different and they're going to get a better return on their investment. For the most part, the agents that are doing listings per year, they're not putting that time into it. If there was a car sitting in the middle of the living room that's an extra parking space, they spin it. For the high volume agents, there's no spinning. They come in, they've got a formula. They know that they've got the crew, the contractors, the handyman, everybody. And home staging, I think, should be part of that quiver of resources to come in and get that property up to market speed and even breaking records in neighborhoods.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. It's a tool in the tool belt. Should be used. I'm curious again, just seems as though you have had a lot of experience in different things. We were talking a minute ago just about some of the other, like the tech side that you've dabbled in or gotten into fully. So can you tell me just background, high level, just how you got to where you are now and some of the other things that you're working on? Yeah.
So me personally, for the bulk of my career, I designed light fixtures for hotels and casinos. I did 80% of all the major decorative at the Wynn Encore. I've done projects all over the world: Perth, China, Macau, Dubai, the Philippines. In 2010, I had my aha moment, and I saw that my interior design friends were on Pinterest and they were headed onto Instagram. They were finding design inspiration there. So my aha moment was I felt the future design collaboration would be a social platform. I failed at my first attempt. My second attempt, we raised $2.2 million. I built an amazing team of in-house people. I had crazy advisors from LinkedIn, Snapchat, MySpace, and Wendy's. In 2017, I went live on Facebook on a rant, watching my interior design friends who had just left a industry-only design event where they got to see products that nobody else gets to see, the public wouldn't see for the next 3, 6, 12 months. And they were on talking about the latest Sherwin-Williams Color of the Year. I went on a rant on Facebook. I was sitting in my hotel room the night before. I scheduled an event that I would go live the next day, and I titled the event, Fuck the Trends. At the time, I had maybe 1,200 followers on Facebook. 2.2 thousand people were watching me live. 30,000 people watched it within 24 hours. I got calls from Baker Furniture and Loloi Rugs, both very conservative companies asking to sponsor my show. In week 6, I brought on HGTV's Queen of Bling, Donna Moss. In week 9, I hosted the top design industry podcasters. We cleared 100,000 views in 1 week. By December of 2017, I was getting calls from publicists asking to book their celebrities on my show. So the first time I had the Property Brothers on, we did a lip sync battle. We cleared 500,000 views in a week. We had 19,000 people watching us live. 2018, we cleared 3.2 million views of my talk show. I made 180 grand hosting a 1 hour a week talk show. That year, I stayed up till 5:30 in the morning taking whiskey shots with Julian Lennon. I'm now best friends or good friends with 2 supermodels from the 90s that I had a Sports Illustrated calendar on my wall when I was in junior high. Just random stuff. I hosted an HGTV reunion. And then all of that kind of led into, I hunkered down on tech. I currently own 24 tech companies, a media broadcasting company. I run a nonprofit, and I'm COO of iHospital.
Goodness, my man. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So do you attribute that like meteoric rise from that one rant?
Oh, no. I mean, it was a series of fortunate and unfortunate events. Launching a social platform. First of all, like how many social platforms can you think of? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Tumblr, and whatever. There's not many. And Mark Zuckerberg owns 2 of them.
Yeah.
So, and Elon Musk owns another. I'm no Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I was in a very small peer group of people, so I got to hang with some pretty neat people, which gave me a lot of access to stuff. The startup community gave me a huge access to people I would never in a million years associated with. The talk show, that was a big game changer. I've spoke at PodCon and all kinds of different podcasting events. I do believe that real estate agents, any business owner, should be getting in front of, it should have a podcast, should be getting in front of people, featuring people. You having me on here, like the featuring other people is a huge networking opportunity. I speak at podcasting events. It's not about the podcast. It's about the invitation. And I use this example. Let's say I call a potential client. Ring, ring, ring. Hey, how's it going? Hey, I wanted to sell you on this thing. They're going to hear that right away. They're going to hang up. Ring, ring, ring. Hey, I'd like to invite you to be a guest on my podcast. Interesting. What's your podcast about? It's about real estate. You know, I know real estate. So how long will it be? What's involved with it? And you're right away, you've got a foot in the door.
For sure.
Having a podcast is amazing. As a business owner, you should be on podcasts. You should be getting in front of media, creating a brand for yourself, but you should also drive the narrative by hosting a podcast. So I'm a big advocate for podcasting. I think it's an amazing tool for opening up doors. I wouldn't have met all the people that I've met had I not gotten into media.
Yeah. It took me a long time to launch. And I don't think I would have hired some guys to help me actually do the back end and all that. But absolutely, it's, again, you and I are on this call. A lot of the people that I've talked to, yeah, it opens doors for sure. And then the other side of it, I'm kind of surprised. I will talk to some or invite some agents on the show. They'll book a thing and then they just don't show up. I'm like, what is happening? Yeah, you booked it, and this is an opportunity for you to reach out to people that you have. Yeah, it's interesting, but I agree 100%. It's a great platform. And I've really enjoyed it because I love the conversations.
Well, and I don't think people realize, so, and I'll paint a picture for you. So if I go on social media is amazing. I can take out my cell phone, I can record myself, and how many agents do you see doing that stupid selfie thing where their face is in the picture the whole time? They're walking you through a listing. Get your freaking face out of the picture. That's dumb. We can see you at the beginning, we can see you at the end. Get your face out of there. But you're just self-serving at that. You're just you, and you must love your face. Podcasts and anything, anytime you can be in an article and you can share your story, then you and I are having a conversation. The listeners get to listen. This isn't a hard sell now. And you're probably more open to sharing things about you that are of better interest to your audience. So it's a great way to kind of get your own ego out of it and let people learn about you. I cannot stress enough how important it is for any business owner to get out and get interviewed on different things, and so that people can hear your genuine you. And if people buy you before they buy your brand.
What do you have then as advice? So I'm going to ask a couple questions down this line. Well, first is a lot of people are nervous to go and have a conversation or I guess put themselves out there. Like, do I have anything to talk about? Right. So what's your advice to people who may feel that way, or agents specifically? And they're like, I don't know many agents who don't want to put themselves out there, honestly. It's a big ego trip, but
yeah, they got their picture everywhere, but their voice is different.
Yeah, true.
And also they don't want to look silly. Number one, before we started recording, you've got your mic set up and I've got my mic set up and all this stuff. Number one, go get yourself an Apple inline earbud set. The cheap inline headset that came with your phone from the get-go, go get that. Best tool ever. Later on, if you want to invest in other things, you're going to probably buy all the wrong equipment and then replace it with other equipment. That Apple inline microphone is the best headset out there. Go get that. You're going to be ready to be on any podcast and your sound's going to be awesome. When you get there, and I had a speech coach tell me this, don't get over prepared. You already know your business. You know your story. Just be you. So just answer the questions. I host a Joining Crowd Business podcast. My questions are always the same. I always ask people, can you share a little bit about you and your business? That's amazing. How did you get started? What makes you unique? What is something most people might not know about you or your business? And how can people find out more? Those questions are super easy. And what I learned from my 3.2 million views and the show that I did, people weren't tuning in for me. They were tuning in to listen to the guests, to hear from them. They wanted to learn about them. They wanted to learn about Carson Kressley. And they wanted to know how he got started and what makes his design business unique and something that they didn't know. People love that inside scoop. Yeah. So I've distilled my podcast down to a very simple format that highlights the guest. And for that, we get crazy views on it and we give the guests a copy of it. And really, they're getting me in front of their audiences. So for anybody who's looking to be on, you should be on podcasts. It's so easy. Go to yourself an inline mic. And just be you. You already know your space.
Yeah. And then to that, again, down that same line, a lot of agents I know do have podcasts and radio shows. There's a radio show I'm going to be on next week, and it's one of the guests that I had on the show. So it's a nice reciprocal deal. And so it sounds like either you had somebody helping you, coaching you, mentoring you on how to go viral, or you are just really good at coming up with like, let's do some lip sync battle. Is that, with the Property Brothers? What are some tips on that line? If somebody does have a show, I'm curious myself, like how could I either spice it up, make it more interesting, do that sort of thing so that it's more engaging?
Yeah. So it was a fluke. That first time I went live, I was sitting in a hotel room. I took my headphone wires and I tied my cell phone to the handle of my luggage and I went on to rant and I had 7 people join in. And it turns out I only had 1,200 followers. So those 2,200 people weren't all my people plus 700. That wasn't true. Or 1,000. That wasn't true. They were their followers. They were my guest listeners popping in to see what they were about. So in that very first episode, I learned it wasn't about. When I speak at podcasting events and when I talk on podcasts, I call it the Jimmy Fallon effect. You know who Jimmy Fallon is, right? Would you say pretty popular guy?
I would think so. He's got his own TV show.
Yeah, pretty charismatic too. What else do you know about the guy? Do you know what he does during the day?
No, I think he's buddies. He just runs around with all the other late night show hosts and they just hang out. They could probably get together and I don't know. Play golf. I
don't know anything about him. Like he just disappears. I think he might just live on set. Yeah. I know his family. Yeah. We saw it during COVID. He did a show from his attic. But I don't know anything about him.
A book that we have.
Jimmy is, Jimmy is really good about featuring his guests. And that's what I learned. It was all about the guest. In fact, I am a big talker. But when I'm the host of my podcast, I'm a good listener. And so if you're going to have a podcast, my advice is bring on guests, ask questions that frame them well. Ask them about how they got started. Ask them about that time that they had a hiccup on a project, or what was your hardest listing and how'd you end up selling that? Ask the questions that make the guest look like a rock star, that really highlight them so that the listeners learn something. Because if that guest gets more customers because of that podcast, they're going to love your podcast. The other thing is we keep talking about podcasts, but there's a huge value to hosting local events. When you get an invite to be a part of a panel, that, I'll tell you, I hosted many events, speaking events. I've spoke on stages. When you are on stage, everybody in the audience thinks that you know something they don't. When you invite people on stage, that might be the first time that they've been on stage. When they're on a panel with other panelists, they never forget those other panelists, that time that I was on that panel, that time that I spoke. It's nerve-wracking. It's scary. You're going to get up there. You're going to be afraid you're going to say the wrong things. And when you're done, you're never going to forget it. Be the person that arranges those panel discussions. I don't care if it's at a local brewery, but bring your contractors, bring your mortgage brokers, bring your people together, build community with that. You don't have to be the expert. That's what all these guys are for. Invite them and arrange these little, if they're monthly or quarterly, arrange these little things. It's the same as an invite to a podcast. It's just on stage. And if you're going to do that, do me the favor, buy a cheap little tripod, stick your cell phone on it, and stream that on Instagram or Facebook or something. Capture that content, because that's good content. Makes you the community builder. I actually don't advise agents to be podcast hosts. I think you should be selling. I'm of the Mike Berry concept. You should be selling. But if you're gonna, then I would make these very streamlined so that it's highlighting different business in your service area. Your brokers, your contractors, use this as an opportunity to highlight people. I've seen this in the interior design space. I see it in the real estate space. You start inviting other real estate agents on your podcast, and then you're just talking shop and you've lost your audience. The home buyers don't care about you and your other agents or interior designers talking shop. They don't care about that. They want to know what about them. They want to know that you know all the cool people and all the cool spots and all the cool things that are happening. If you can get a guest who's leading some massive event, if you can have the mayor on your podcast, if you can, that's going to get you in front of more home buyers, home sellers.
We're proud to be sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other Texas secondary markets. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com.
For sure. Man, I love the tactics. I love it. It's, again, me hearing it, I have an interesting audience because it's agents, and I'm pushing the investment side of things and how to invest and get agents out of the active day-to-day. I'm out just grinding, but building some cash flow themselves.
In that case, those guys have to be the face of their brand.
For sure.
I'm big on, and I had Peter Adams. He leads Rocky Ventures Club. It's the oldest venture club in America. And back in, I think it was November, I had him on, and he said something that rocked my world. He said that maybe your skill set isn't real estate or making cupcakes. If you have made a profitable business, maybe your skill set's making profitable businesses. And I was like, oh shit. And to frame that differently, imagine that your skill set is to build the world's largest building. And when you get done, you say, I'm done. You've done the world a huge injustice because you are the person who knows how to make the world's largest building. You are probably the guy who can help make the next world's largest building. And you've got the skill set for it, but you just retired. That sucks. So if you know how to make profitable businesses, then you should be helping other people make profitable businesses. I think if you are a little mom and pop shop on the corner of nowhere, you need to be leading your brand. If you are multi-billionaire and you just know how to make money, you should be the face of your brand.
Yeah.
You got to be out there.
Did you find through your process and your journey that you are the 0 to 1 guy? That you love to live in that space? And by that, I mean, you can take a concept and get it off the ground and run with it. Or do you live somewhere else in that space, or happily in multiple places?
So I discovered this back when I started in lighting. In lighting design, you usually have industrial designers or you have mechanical designers. So these guys are very engineering mindset. They got their engineering mindset. They're just, hey, 1 + 1 is 2, and you just can't shake that. These guys cannot draw a curved line. They just can't. It's just not in their wheelhouse. Squares and lines. This is it. I was a weird duck in that I was both a creative and an analytical. And my skill set is that I can find the problem in that design. You've got your mic rig in front of you, and I'll tell you that the make it or break it is, strangely enough, that spring tensioner. That's the make it or break it, because everything else is just rods and screws. It's not, but the make it or break it is those tensioners. In my skill set is I can hone in on that, and I can see it in my head. So I can look at a business and I can say, okay, that's what this business looks like now. This is what it should look like. And the problem in getting to where it should be is going to be this one little spring tensioner. If we can get past that, then we can build this thing successfully. So I've taken a company from 9 million to 28 million, one from 30 to 96 million. I love restructuring and reorganizing organizations. I say it all the time. Business owners in any space, they dive in and suddenly they're putting out fires. And now you're just running around putting out fires. And every day, every week, every year, you're just in this thing. And suddenly you think that's how your business should run. You never really take the time to hit the pause button and say, shit, what was my original goal? Yeah. How far away am I from that? And what do I need to do to fix it? Usually it's just that tensioner. It's just this one or two things that if you just change that out, then you'll be back on track again.
So how did you get into that? And is that a service you provide, or is that literally you just go around looking for, hey, this business is interesting. I'm going to jump into the Stagers Association and tweak this thing up so we're running on all cylinders. Like, how does that even come about?
I'm getting more comfortable with this. Like I said, my first tech startup, I failed. I launched a tech startup as a small business, and there's a huge mental difference there. Small businesses, your savings, your money, your widget or your cupcakes, and you think you're the best cookie maker, cupcake maker, and you open up your shop and either it sells or it doesn't. In tech, you've got a lot longer runway. I misjudged the runway. I went broke. I went from an 8-bedroom condo in Anaheim Hills with 3 Mercedes and all kinds of cool stuff to I had $100 left in my account by August of 2013, and I was broke. With that last $100, I got a bicycle and I took a $12 an hour phone job, and I got fired from that. 2014, I built a team. I dived into the startup space, and I learned the value of building a team. I learned the value of being the dumbest person at the table. My job was to cast vision and recruit the right people. And my job was to fund the business. It was to go out and go get that money that we needed to keep things going. What I learned in that startup space was you don't need to get to the top to start helping the next guy up. And I don't know if that was, in hindsight, that was a lovely philosophy. To this day, I don't know how to charge to coach. I just meet with people and I love giving back. I'm getting better at trying to figure out I've turned companies around. So now I'm learning how to get better. I actually hate coaches. The whole coaching thing seems so preposterous to me. Like, you've got to have the world's biggest ego for this stuff. But I do deliver
value. Sign up for my program next week.
Like, I do. I just think, and there is a skill set there, but anyhow, I'm getting more used to it. I think I'm more of the person that comes in and says, let's restructure, reorganize. And there's a huge value to that.
I have a friend who is very good at that, at monetizing his knowledge, and unabashedly asked for money to consult.
I guess so. I just, man, the thing is, I met with this guy and he's like, hey, so I've got this labor union, and I had this conversation with them. Their employees, if they had better aptitude for finances and personal health and all these things, they'd be more productive people. And this trade association recognized that. I'm thinking of starting a coaching thing for that trade association or for that union. And I was like, man, how many people in that union? He's 1,100. I was like, oh my God, are you a coach? Well, no. And I was like, so then how are you going to coach 1,100 people? I don't know. Well, maybe you found a vein, you found a need, and maybe your solution isn't the best solution. How about you go back to that union and ask, how much money are you losing to people being out of work or being short on finances and having to call out, and this becomes a distraction, and because of that, they're not able to get their work done. How much money have they lost in gains and profits and reduction in labor? And then that's a budget. Let's say they say that's $1 million. I was like, instead of trying to coach all those people, why don't you throw an event for them and you bring in coaches and health professionals and mental health professionals, and you almost put on like a private conference or a private expo where you've pre-negotiated discounts with all the vendors for these, and it's a private event for this union. Probably haven't thrown an expo before. Hire an event planner, get the budget. They said $1 million, ask them for $500,000, $750,000. And now you got your budget. Go find an event planner who will do this for $200K and there's your profit. And now you could do this all day. You just go find another labor union, find an event coordinator, and be the middleman. Why try to be? So that was a coffee right down the street, and totally reframed his entire business. Hadn't thought of it. And I bought my own coffee. So I got to get better at this stuff, man. I didn't even get a damn coffee out of the deal. Yeah.
I know. That's interesting. I love that because I don't know. I have had many conversations with other business owners as well, and volunteers score and love talking to entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs and what they're doing, and just kind of seeing that same thing. I mean, that's interesting. We're like on the same line mentally there.
Yeah.
Just curious on the startups and that sort of thing. We've kind of got veered off real estate big time, but I love the startup space, and I've been looking at doing startups. And for a while now, I pitched some ideas locally at some events that we had, like it's Startup Week, and some local guys. It's in San Antonio, geeked them, and they put it on. So I've gone through that process, and I had a bunch of buddies doing other startups and that sort of thing. I've always been intrigued there. When you are looking at a tech startup and creating an app or social media platform, that sort of thing, like how long did it take you to get that off the ground? And did you actually go through like an incubator, or did you go do one of those things? Or was it just somebody ended up coming, giving you a check and said, okay, we trust that you're going to go get this thing off the ground?
That would be amazing.
How'd that work?
No.
I mean, that's
first and foremost, the first one, I spent $253,000 of my personal savings, and I ended up poor. I like to say it now. I didn't like it then. I paid $253,000 for an education. So I paid a really expensive education. After that, I dove into the startup ecosystem. If you guys Google 1 million cups, it's run by the Kauffman Foundation. It is in most major cities. It's a free event. It's every Wednesday from 8:30 till 10 o'clock in the morning. 1 to 2 entrepreneurs get up in front of the audience and they pitch their content for feedback. This isn't pitching for money. This isn't BNI. This is just people sharing their idea, saying, hey, so here's what I'm doing. And then at the end, they can ask. So that all sounded great, but I don't have a web developer. So if anybody knows a web developer, that'd be great. And it really activates the community to jump in and help out. It is an amazing program. I've launched 2 chapters myself. I've helped a friend launch a 3rd, and I was a volunteer at the one here in Denver. I will tell you, if you want to get energized and just hear people sharing ideas and the innovative thoughts and honestly, even the shitty thoughts, people get up there and you're like, oh my God, this is stupid. But it'll start to train your brain where you're like, this is good and that's bad. And here's why it's bad. And all of that is great brain training for entrepreneurialism. Great event. I'd say go swing by. You don't have to have anything to do with startups other than it starts to just flex that brain muscle of yours on how to think critically on business. That's an amazing one.
Yeah.
You mentioned SCORE earlier. SCORE is an amazing one too. That's more of a small business mindset though, which all startups should realize that they're going to be a business someday. They may just be starting up now, but you need all those business skills. Realtors, any business. So many times you jump in, you thought for whatever reason you started selling real estate. You know how many people are 10 years, 20 years down the road and they don't know basic business 101 skills? Like, go to SCORE, go network, go learn some things that are going to help improve your business. Somebody did not write me a big giant check at the beginning. We were quite a ways in. And in fact, the first check that we got, we spent that, most of that went to a research firm so that we could do a market study. Also, prior to that, I was broke. I told you I screwed up. The day that the check cleared the account, I did not have cell phone service on my cell phone. So I was having to walk down to Starbucks to use the Wi-Fi to make calls and use the internet. On the way, there was this homeless guy behind a 7-Eleven dumpster diving for cardboard. He needed some help down with this cardboard, so I helped him down. And turns out he and a bunch of people were living in their cars behind the Albertsons down the street grocery store. To celebrate my first investor check for, I think it was like 30 grand or something, I bought him a pizza, and then we waited. I got him I think we got like a dozen pizzas at 7-Eleven. There was already made, so he and I sat out front and ate that one while the other ones were getting prepared. And that's how I celebrated our first round of funding. So no, man, the road to entrepreneurship, it's a weird one. People get to see, I know that people saw lip sync battling with the Property Brothers, or I've had the Real Housewives of Everything and Ty Pennington and all these different people on the show. And it looked really cool. If you look at my social media, Joseph Hecker, There's some pretty cool people that I've got to hang with. But man, you peel the curtain back, you're like, oh my God, that's what's going on back here. It's super fun, an awesome adventure. But my number one tip is dive into your community. I don't care what you do. If you're a cupcake maker, dive into that food community. If you're in real estate, dive in, go network, get out to all the different events and go get to know your space really well. Go adventure in other spaces. Go explore NFT and crypto and Web3 and go hit some of those other ones that you're probably the only person in your category at that group. That's cool because that's going to give you an edge and you're going to be able to bring that to your business too. Go get industry agnostic.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to ask what your number one tip is, but you just nailed it there. And I would second that going to functions that are not within your industry are like well worth it and necessary as a realtor and as an agent looking to grow their business. Because if you're talking to another realtor, you're not getting business from them. That's not happening. I mean, it might if you collaborate on something, but seriously, you're going to get more if you go to an attorney association or some other event.
This is one that I don't hear a lot, and this is directly real estate. Again, my ex was 75 to 100 listing per year, high volume agent, solo agent, high volume agent. And I asked her one time, who's your best customer? And she was like, oh, this one client of hers had referred her to a bunch of people. And I was like, really? That's who your best? She was predominantly a listing agent. She had an employee who handled the buyer side, but she was primarily a listing agent. So I get that because you thought that was a client. But we had walked into a condo one time in a complex that she sells a lot. And the agents, when we walked in, they're like, oh my God, you're this person. And they're like, you sell this whole neighborhood. And I was like, I don't think your best client as a listing agent is the homeowner who refers you. I think your best client is the buyer's agents that know that you have a staged home, that your homes are painted, they're well presented, you have great marketing, you negotiate well, they know your reputation, and they bring you buyers. And I'd asked her if she had ever gone back to her buyer's agents and seen who was repeatedly showing, who pinged that lockbox the most. When she looks back at it, who was the buyer's agent that brought her these buyers? And if a name keeps popping up, that's your best client. That's the person who keeps bringing you business. I was like, when was the last time you called them up and said, hey, I just looked at our books and I realized, damn, you've been bringing me a lot of business. I was able to do $2.4 million last year because you guys bring me business. Let's get you guys a round of drinks. Let's celebrate together. I don't ever see listing agents celebrating and congratulating and even acknowledging their buyer's agents. That's just a pet peeve of mine. I've talked about this on a few different real estate podcasts. I don't see that happening enough. And I love networking. I love community building. This is a missed opportunity for listing agents, I believe.
That's a great idea. Well, I'd wonder if it's mainly due to the fact that there are so many agents who do so little volume. If you're only doing 6 listings a year or something, 6 transactions even a year, you could still take them out. They brought you business. They did you a deal, right?
Turn them into raving fans. That homeowner is going to buy one house from you. Statistically, they might sell in 5 years or something, and they may or may not use you. But you know who's going to come back next week with some buyer opportunities for another listing? That buyer's agent. But there's this weird competitiveness thing that should be bridged. If you're the listing agent, then your buyer's agents, that whole Rolodex of people, should be, in my opinion, that thick as thieves. You guys should be thanking them, recognizing them. Hell, if every year you issued an award to the person who brought me the most amount of, recognize these people because they're bringing you those buyers. Those buyers have to qualify. But these people are doing a lot of the legwork. And if you've got a reputation for having good listings, then it's easier for them. And I just don't see people recognizing. Take a page out of sports for that. In sports, you watch any ball game or whatever, after every play, they're snapping each other on the butt. They're congratulating and banging helmets. If you score down, freaking the celebration, you get a touchdown, amazing. At the end of the game, we don't take the time to celebrate our people enough. Those buyer's agents are, unbeknownst to a lot of people, your team. They're bringing you people.
Yeah.
I think it should be celebrated.
I think in real estate, there's typically, at least this is my experience, been not an abundance mentality. It's more like, I got to get what's mine. And that's the mentality. It's not the operating from abundance. And so, yeah, I agree. Moving into the commercial space, there's a lot more of an abundance mentality. People are working together a lot more because it takes a lot of people and moving parts to get a deal done. So yeah, that's interesting. I think that would serve people well. So take that tip, listeners, and go out, buy somebody a around by your people and that sort of thing. I want to ask you a couple questions real fast before we get off. I know we're at the top of the hour here. What I guess a couple things that you like, or name one or two things that you like that have nothing to do with business whatsoever. Like what is
I've got my
what's
background word, but I'm learning ukulele.
Yeah.
The funny part is I practice out in public. Like I'll go out somewhere and I'll set up my little tripod and I'll put my cell phone in front of me and I follow a couple of YouTubers to learn how to play. And I've got my earbuds in. I've literally heard people as they're walking by going, I wouldn't tip that guy. So the fun for me is I get to just jack people's eardrums while I'm out practicing ukulele in public.
Yeah. So you're busking, man. You got it all going on, man. And you said you were in New Orleans before. Is that what I heard?
We just got back from the IHOPS convention in New Orleans, but I'm here in Denver, and then I got a condo in Vegas.
Got it. I went to school in New Orleans, so I just didn't know. There's a lot of buskers there. But yeah, in Denver, great spot for it too. So what's the best thing or memory that's happened to you in the recent past 60 days or so?
I've got two kids. They're 23 and 25 years old, and I've got to do a lot of cool things. I know Kathy Ireland pretty well now, and just amazing people that I've got to meet. If I were to hit by a bus today, I've already done the best thing that I could. I've got two amazing kids. Everything else now, I have a high risk tolerance because I've already done my best thing. Everything else, anything else that I do is going to be icing on the cake. I love my guys. They're amazing. They're independent, free-thinking guys. They're in Orange County. I'm out here in Denver. They got the right heart. There are things that they can improve on, not my business. They're independent guys now, and I get to just appreciate them for who they are. My perspective on things is really, I've already done my best thing.
Yeah, that's a great outlook. I love that. My risk tolerance is through the roof because I've already, that's great.
Yeah, billionaires do the same thing. When they hit $1 billion, they quit dressing up. I've met 5 billionaires and one guy on track to become a billionaire. And I'll tell you, when my kids met a billionaire friend of mine, they're like, Dad, he's got holes in his shoes. And I was like, yeah, because he doesn't care. He's not impressing you anymore. The guy that's walking around in the $200-300 million suit, that dude's really trying to impress you with shit. Like, billionaires don't care. You look at Mark Cuban and he's just like, whatever, I'm already there. Like, I don't care because they've already done it. His priorities are different. My priorities are different.
Yeah, I love it. So last question, just name one or two people who've been most influential to the way you think or your success.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. John Pietro, former head of marketing for Wendy's. If I were to call him up right now, he would meet me at the Starbucks over on Lake Forest Drive in Lake Forest. We'd order our coffee, would sit down at the little table, and he would sit there tapping his foot, just impatiently listening to me ramble on about all my shit and all the ways I'm going to change the world. And I'll tell you exactly what he will say as soon as I shut up. He'll say, where's the low-hanging fruit? And I'd be like, oh, but you don't understand. Blah, 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 blah. And then as soon as I shut up, where's the low-hanging fruit? And I'll tell you, best fucking advice ever. What's the low-hanging fruit? It. And gosh, he would say the same thing right now. And it's the best advice I've ever got.
Phenomenal. I'm going to take that and run with that too. That's always good. I do always have that thought. I'm like, what is the low-hanging fruit? My wife will tell you the same thing. She's like, that's it. Go get that.
We go down rabbit holes, man. We go down all these things and shiny object. And let me go over here.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think I'm supposed to do this too. What is the thing? Do that thing.
When we end this call, I'm going to get my free cup of coffee's worth real fast with you. Look, Joseph, it has been an interesting conversation. You are a good soul, my man. I've enjoyed getting to know you and talking to you about it. The pizza story with the guys at the 7-Eleven is money. It is like you are a good soul.
Yeah, thanks.
So thanks for coming on. It's been great. Do you have point anybody to contact you if they want to reach you, anywhere they can go?
Yeah, so especially since it's a real estate podcast, take the chance to take a look at iHosp. It's IAHSP.com. I've restructured that entire platform. When I came on, I looked at why do people join a professional trade association? 57% join so that they can network. 26% join so that they can improve their business. 25% join because they think a trade association has information that only they can get from a trade association. And when I looked at all that, I looked at my tech background, I said, well, you know what? That networking, that's Facebook groups. People are on Facebook groups doing that. So what if we centered our activity around groups? So if you go to ihosp.com, ihsp.com, you're going to see that our home icon prefers group. So you don't have Istanbul trying to hit, website development,
Yeah.
you're just amongst peers. And then after that, it's all about, we've instead of having 5 instructors that taught all of our instructing, we open it up. So if you have courses that you want to put out there and sell, we have Hive Pro. It's kind of like Teachable, but on our platform. So if you've got short-term rental coaching or courses or audio courses, then you can put it on here. You can put podcasts on there. We've got real estate podcasts. So I wanted to make the platform social. And so for that, when I came on, we were at why do you ever need to go to a trade association website to see when a course is coming up or whatever? So our average time on site is 28 minutes now. And we're hitting around 7,000 visitors per day. And that's because people are coming on, they have things to stay on here for. They have podcasts to listen to. They've got courses to watch. They've got groups to engage with. So it seems like a strange fit. Why would you go to a home staging association's website? Because there's a whole network of people there. So I would invite you guys to come visit iahsp.com.
Fantastic. Joseph, thanks for your time. Thanks for your knowledge. Awesome.
Surprisingly, most of the agents we speak with got into real estate hoping to gain passive income and become work optional. However, only 1 in 5 ever start investing. Most are simply too afraid to start. Once you get educated by listening to this show, you'll be able to overcome that fear and become the 1 in 5 who are finding financial freedom. Don't miss a single episode. If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. And we'll catch you on the next episode.